Good morning everyone. This video is for the students of class 7th, subject English. In this video, we shall read our lesson number 5, that is quality, from our book Honeycomb. This chapter will be covered in 3 lectures and this is my first lecture. So, let's start our lesson number 5, quality. This chapter talks about a shoemaker whose name was Mr. Gessler. So before starting reading this chapter, let's have a look on introduction of the chapter. This story is about a struggling shoemaker's dedication to his work. Basically, this story is about Mr. Gessler, who is a shoemaker and who is hardworking. The author knows him as someone who thinks and works with the passion of an artist to the limit that the shoes he makes are masterpieces in themselves. But in the end, the story tells us about the sad loss of art and quality in today's world of mass-produced big brands and consumerism. So basically in this chapter, we are going to read about a shoemaker whose name is Mr. Gessler. He was very good in his art. He made masterpieces in his boots, but he lost in the competition of big brands. As a consumer, we are also attracted towards big brands, advertisements, our looks. We do not focus on quality of the product. We always focus on the looks of the product, due to which the good quality or the deserving one do not get the credit, that much credit which they deserve. In this chapter, there are two main characters, the storyteller, who is the author, and the Gessler brothers, who are the shoemakers. So, the story starts like this. I knew him from the days of my extreme youth, because he made my father's boots. Here I refers to the author. The author knew Mr. Gessler from the days of his childhood because Mr. Gessler used to make boots for his father. He lived with his elder brother in his shop, which was in a small by street in a fashionable part of London. Mr. Gessler used to live with his elder brother in their shop itself. The shop had a certain quite distinction. The shop was quite different from other shops. There was no sign upon it other than the name of Gessler Brothers, and in the window a few pairs of the boots. So what was the distinction? What was the difference of the Gessler Brothers shop from the other shops? That there was no sign on the shop except the name of Gessler Brothers on it, and in the window there were few pairs of boots. He made only what was ordered, and what he made never failed to fit. So Mr. Gessler works only on orders. He make only those boots which he get on order, and whatever he makes the best. To make boots, such boots as he made, seemed to me then, and still seems to me, mysterious and wonderful. I remember well my shy remarks one day while stretching out to him my youthful foot. Isn't it awful hard to do, Mr. Gessler? He says that, the author says that he was always wonder that how Mr. Gessler makes such masterpieces. One day he said to him that isn't it awful hard to do? Then Mr. Gessler what he said, and his answer given with a sudden smile from out of the redness of his beard, it is an art, means it is an art. It was not possible to go to him very often. His boots lasted terribly, having something beyond the temporary, some essence of boot stitched into them. Now, the author says that it was not possible for him to go to Mr. Gessler's shop quite often. Why? Because he makes such good boots that they lasted very long. One went in, not as into most shops, but restfully, as one enters a church, and sitting on the single wooden chair waited. A guttural sound and the tip-tap of his slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs, and he would stand before one without coat. Now, what the author is saying? The author is saying that whenever someone enters his shop, the person sit in the chair and a guttural sound, or we can say a harsh sound, and the tip tap of his slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs, he would stand before one without coat. And Mr. Gessler come down from the stairs and would stand in front of the customer. A little bent in leather apron with sleeves turned back, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots. Now, the author is explaining the looks of Mr. Gessler, that whenever he comes down from the stairs, he would stand in front of that person, a little bent, with a leather apron, with sleeves turned back, blinking, as if he has awakened from the dream of boots. And I would say, how do you do, Mr. Gessler? Now the author says, how do you do, Mr. Gessler? Could you make me a pair of Russian leather boots? Without a word, he would leave me retiring whence he came, or into the other portion of the shop, and I would continue to rest in the wooden chair, inhaling the incense of his trade. Soon he would come back, holding in his hand a piece of gold brown leather, with eyes fixed on it. He would remark, "What a beautiful piece!" Now the author says that one day he asked Mr. Gessler for a pair of Russian leather boots. Mr. Gessler goes in the other portion of the shop and brought a piece of gold brown leather, and looking at that pair of boots, he said, "What a beautiful piece!" When I too had admired it, he would speak again, "When do you want them?" Now the author says that when he also admired the boots, then Mr. Gessler asked him, "When do you want them?" And I would answer, "Oh, as soon as you conveniently can." And he would say, "Tomorrow fortnight," or if he were his elder brother, "I will ask my brother." Now the author is saying that what he usually say, he would answer, "Oh, as soon as you can conveniently can." Then Mr. Gessler would say, "Tomorrow fortnight," or he will ask his brother. Then I would murmur, means speak, "Thank you, good morning, Mr. Gessler." "Good morning," he would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand, and as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip tap of his slippers going up the stairs to his dream of boots. Now, the author is just explaining us the conversation of Mr. Gessler and the author whenever they meet in their boot shop. I cannot forget that day on which I had occasion to say to him, "Mr. Gessler, that last pair of boots cracked, you know." He looked at me for a time without replying, as if expecting me to withdraw or qualify the statement, then said, "I would shouldn't have Greeked it, did I am afraid. You goddamn wed before they found themselves." Now the author is trying to say that one day he got a chance to complain Mr. Gessler about the pair of boots he made. And one day he said to him that, "Mr. Gessler, the last pair of boots were not good and they creaked." Then Mr. Gessler was looking at him for a while without replying, as if he was expecting the author to say that it should not have creaked. "It didn't, I am afraid. You got them wet before they found themselves. I don't think so. At that he lowered his eyes as if hunting for memory of those boots, and I felt sorry I had mentioned this grave thing. Send them back, he said. I will look at them. Then what happened? When the author complained about boots to Mr. Gessler, he was feeling very bad and he asked the author to send that pair of boots back to him, and he said that I will look at them. Some boots, he continued slowly saying that some boots are bad from both. If I can do nothing with them, I take them off your bill. Then he said that if I could not repair them, then I will return you the money. Once only, I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in an emergency at some large firm. He took my order without showing me any leather, and I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior covering of my foot. At last he said, "Those are not my boots." Now one day what happened? Author, without thinking anything, he went into Mr. Gessler's shop wearing a pair of boots of some large firm. Then Mr. Gessler took his order without showing him any leather, and he was constantly staring on his boots, and at last he said that those are not my boots. The tone was not one of anger, nor of sorrow, not even of contempt, but there was in it something quite that froze the blood. Now the author is trying to explain us the feeling of Mr. Gessler, the way he said, "Those are not my boots." He was not even angry, nor he said in sorrow, but he said it some way like it froze the blood of the author. He put his hand down and pressed a finger on the place where the left boot was not quite comfortable. "It hurts you there," he said. "Those big firms have no self-respect." Then what happened? Mr. Gessler sat down and he pressed a finger on the place where the left boot was hurting the author. And he said, "It hurts you there. The big firms have no self-respect." And then, as if something had given way within him, he spoke long and bitterly. And then what happened? Mr. Gessler was either upset or we don't know what happened with him. He spoke long and bitterly. It was the only time I ever heard him discuss the conditions and hardship of his trade. That was the first time that author was hearing the conditions and hardship of his trade from Mr. Gessler. Then Mr. Gessler said, "They get it all. They get it by advertisement, not by work. They take it away from us who love our boots. It comes to this presently. I have no work. Every year it gets less." Now, what the Mr. Gessler is trying to say, he's trying to say that the big firms, they get it all. They get the consumers through advertisement, not by their quality of work. They take it from us, means they take it from those workers who love their boots. It comes to this presently that Mr. Gessler has no work, and every year to year it is getting less. You will see. And looking at his lined face, I saw things I had never noticed before. Bitter things and bitter struggle, and what a lot of grey hairs there seemed suddenly in his red beard. Now, the author at that time realized that there was something that he had never noticed about Mr. Gessler. He had never noticed his struggle. He had never noticed his grey hairs which are hiding behind his red beard. As best I could, I explained the circumstances of those ill-armed boots. And then the author explained the circumstances of those ill ill quality boots. But his face and voice made so deep an impression that during the next few minutes I ordered many beers. Now the way Mr. Gessler spoke, that left a very deep impression on the author that for few minutes he paired a lot many boots from him. They lasted longer than ever, and I was not able to go to him for nearly 2 years. Now the author is saying that when he heard such things from Mr. Gessler, he was feeling very bad for him, that he ordered many pairs of shoes for him, and they lasted that much long that he could not visit him for nearly 2 years. It was many months before my next visit to his shop. This time it appeared to be his elder brother handling a piece of leather. Now, after 2 years, the author visited Mr. Gessler's shop again, and this time there was his elder brother who was handling a piece of leather in his hand. "Well, Mr. Gessler," I said, "how are you?" Now the author said that, "Mr. Gessler, how are you?" He came close and peered at me. Peered means looked closely at me. "I'm pretty well," he said slowly, "but my elder brother is dead." Now, Mr. Gessler said that "I'm good, but my elder brother is no more now." And I saw that it was indeed himself, but how aged an one. And never before had I heard him mention his brother. Much shocked, I murmured, "Oh, I'm sorry." At that time, when Mr. Gessler told him about his elder brother's death, he was so shocked and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry." "Yes," he answered, "he was a good man, he made a good boot, but he is dead." And he touched the top of his head, where the hair had suddenly gone as thin as it had been on that of his poor brother, to indicate, I suppose, the cause of his death. "Do you want any boots?" And he held up the leather in his hand. "It is a beautiful piece." Now what happened? The Mr. Gessler said that he was a good man and he made a good boot, but he is no more now. Then he touched his head, showing the hair that had suddenly gone as thin as it had been on his poor brother's head, indicating that the author was the reason for his death. Then he said, "Do you want any boots?" And he was holding a leather in his hand, and he said, looking at that, that it is a beautiful piece. I ordered several pairs. Now listening to him, the author again ordered several pairs of boots. It was very long before they came, but they were better than ever. One simply could not wear them out, and soon after that I went abroad. It was over a year before I was again in London, and the first shop I went to was my old friend's. Now what happened? He again ordered several pairs of boots and took them and went to abroad. Coming back from abroad after 1 year, he returned to that shop again. I had left a man of 60, I came back to one of 75, pinched and worn, who genuinely this time didn't at first know me. Now what happened? The author is saying that when he left for abroad, the Mr. Gessler was a man of 60, but when he returned from abroad he was looking a man of 75, and this time Mr. Gessler was unable to recognize the author also. Then Mr. Gessler said, "Do you want any boots?" He said, "I can make them quickly, it is a slack time." I answered, "Please, please, I want boots all around every kind." I had given those boots up when one evening they came. Now what happened? Mr. Gessler was unable to recognize the author, and he asked him that if he want any boots. One by one I tried them on. In shape and fit, in finish and quality of leather they were the best he had ever made. Then he ordered so many pairs of boots from Mr. Gessler, and one by one he tried on them, and they were the best. I flew downstairs, wrote a check, and posted it at once with my own hand. A week later, passing the little street, I thought I would go in and tell him how splendidly the new boots fitted. Then what happened? The author took those boots and wrote a check to Mr. Gessler. Then after a week he was passing through his shop the author thought that he should go inside the shop and thank Mr. Gessler for such good quality of boots. But when I came to where his shop had been, his name was gone. Now, when the author decided to thank Mr. Gessler for the best quality of boots, he came to the shop where it had been, but there was no Gessler Brothers name on it. I went in very much disturbed. The author was so disturbed at that time. In the shop there was a young man with an English face. Mr. Gessler in? I said, "No, sir." He said, "No, but we can attend to anything with pleasure." Then what happened? There in the shop there was a man to whom the author asked, "Is there Mr. Gessler inside the shop?" Then the young man said, "No, sir, but we can help you with anything." Then the man continues and he told the author that, "We have taken the shop over." "Yes, yes," I said, "but Mr. Gessler?" "Oh," he answered, "dead." "Dead? But I only received these boots from him last Wednesday week." "Oh," he said, "poor old man starved himself. Slow starvation, the doctor called it. You see, he went to work in such a way." Now the author came to know that Mr. Gessler was no more. He died because of starvation, because of hunger. Would keep the shop on, wouldn't have a soul touch his boots except himself. Now the Englishman told the author that now he would keep the shop on and he would try to make boots of his quality, but he can't. When he got an order, it took him such a time. Then the young man, the Englishman, told the author about Mr. Gessler that he used to make boots on order and it took him a long time. People won't wait, and people would not wait for that much time. He lost everybody, and there he would sit going on and on. And he lost every customer. Mr. Gessler lost every customer, but he would sit there at the corner and would make best quality of boots. I will say that for him, not a man in London made a better boot. Now the Englishman said that I will only say one thing for Mr. Gessler, that in London there was no other man who could made a better boot than him. But look at the competition. Then he said, but look at the competition. He never advertised. He never advertised for his boots. Would have the best leather too and do it all himself. Well, there it is. What could you expect with his ideas? But starvation. That may be a bit flowery, as the saying is, but I know myself he was sitting over his boots day and night to the very last you see I used to watch him. Now, the Englishman was expressing his feelings towards Mr. Gessler that he was the man in London who make the best quality of boots. But due to competition, he lose everything. He never advertised for the best quality of boots he make, but he used best leather too and do it all by himself. But due to hunger, he was died. He was no more. Never gave himself time to eat. Mr. Gessler was so busy in making the best quality of boots for the customers, he never gave himself even time to eat. Never had a penny in the house. He never had any money in his house also. All went in rent and leather. Whatever he gets from the pair of boots, half of the money went in rent and half in the good quality of leather. How he lived so long I don't know. Now the Englishman was expressing his grief for Mr. Gessler that I don't know how he survived so long. He regularly let his fire go out. He was a character. but he made good boots. Yes, I said he made good boots. And the both the both people, Englishman and the author, were expressing their grief for Mr. Gessler. They were feeling bad for him, and at last they both said the one thing, that he made good boots. So this was your chapter, lesson number 5, quality. I hope you understood it. Now your homework is you have to read lesson number 5 and do the following question answers in your rough notebook. These are your question answers under the heading Working with the Text. Answer the following questions. The first question is, what was the author's opinion about Mr. Gessler as a bootmaker? The second question is, why did the author visit the shop so infrequently? The third question is, what was the effect on Mr. Gessler of the author's remark about a certain pair of boots? The fourth question is, what was Mr. Gessler's complaint against big firms? And the fifth question is, why did the author order so many pairs of boots? Did he really need them? So that's all for your today's video. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, then please like the video and subscribe the channel.